Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sunyoung Jang. I'm an associate professor of Hanseo University of South Korea. I'm very glad to present to you. Today, I'd like to talk you about a study on nursing students' subjectivity of the disabled. This is the contents. Introduction. Even though the disabled population is increasing and the perception or attitude toward the disabled is socially emphasized, the social perception of the disabled is negative and they are treated as people with low social status by regarding physical disability as emotional and psychological problem or being different from healthy people. The attitude towards the disabled has been negative for thousands of years, and they have been alienated and discriminated more severely than homosexuals or foreign workers who are socially discriminated. As the people who will be dealing with the issues of the disabled in the future, the university students' attitude toward the disabled would form the fundamental basis of social atmosphere, such as welfare for the disabled in the future. Moreover, as medical personnel in the future, the nursing students' attitude toward the disabled could influence not only the health environment but also the overall society. So the nursing students' positive attitude toward the disabled is important. Most of the preceding researches on the perception and attitude toward the disabled are no more than researches on the actual status. As the core member who make the most contact with patients in health medical side, the nurses should provide the safe and high-quality nursing to patients within limited time in rapidly changing health medical environments. When dealing with patients in nursing side, the subjectivity of perception has such much influence in their nursing. Thus, it is important to understand the perception by nurses and preserve nurses as a methodology based on performers' perception instead of researchers' hypothesis. The Q methodology could understand the characteristic of each type according to humans' subjectivity structure. The nursing students' perception of the disabled is the subjectivity and unique experience. So the Q methodology considers the subjectivity of a subject is a proper research method to verify the nursing students' perception type of the disabled. Thus, this study aimed to provide the basic data necessary for developing the different differentiated educational program according to the characteristic of pre-service nurses' perception of the disabled. By understanding the subjectivity structures of the disabled in the perspective of nursing students. This is the purpose of the study. The objectives of this study are to provide information about nursing students dealing with patients with disability, and also to provide the basic data for presenting strategies to educating nursing students by examining the type of subjective perception of the disabled and the characteristic of each type, targeting the nursing students with the application of Q methodology. The concrete research subjectives are also followed. The nursing students' subjective perception of the disabled is categorized. The characteristic of such type of nursing students' perception of disabled are analyzed and described. This is study method. To achieve the objectives of this study, after considering the literature, medium data, and proceeding researches on the disabled, it aimed to find the subjective showing the type of subjective perception of the disabled, targeting the nursing students who have experience in contact with the disabled. In order to extract a comprehensive statement on the effects of the disabled targeting the concurrent nursing students, the Q population was drawn through the consideration of domestic foreign relevant literature, open-ended questionnaire, and individual in-depth interview. In this process, the Q method population with about 200 samples was drawn. Besides it, the Q population with total 100 samples were extracted by integrated in the collected literature through the consideration of domestic foreign relevant literature. After reviewing and modifying the extracted Q sample, this study finally selected total 38 samples with high discrimination. This is sampling method. As the P sample, this study selected total 15 nursing students who voluntarily agreed to participate in this study. After fully explaining the objectives of this study to them. This slide shows QMAT classification process and method. 15 nursing students. The time for each participant to complete Q classification was 35 to 50 minutes on average. Data analysis was performed via Canopus program, and Q factor analysis utilized principal components factor analysis. The mean and the standard deviation of components were analyzed utilizing SPS Swin 21 program. result. In the result of analyzing the subjectivity of disabled by using the PC corner program, there were total two factors explaining 51.86% of total variance. The factor 1 was 40.255%, while the factor 2 was 11.61%. As the factor 1 has the 40.255% explanatory power, it should be regarded as factor explaining the most of the disabled. Among total 50 research subjects, 10 people belonged to the factor 1 and the last 5 people belonged to the factor 2. The people belonging to each factor mean the group showing similar response to disabled. The type of subjectivity of disabled produced by this type analysis method could be presented as follows. The first type is social policy level supporting highlighted type. In the characteristic of the type 1, they thought that there should be some effort to support self-reliance and independent life of the disabled according to the numerical increase of the disabled. They regarded it not as individual effort from parents or guardians, but as an issue that should be solved by our society, so everyone should make effort to establish the measures together. According to them, it would be necessary to provide helpful support to the disabled, such as lifelong education center, differentiated education, and job development for the disabled, and also the state and local governments should establish the long-term policy. Therefore, the type 1 was named Social Policy Level Support Highlight Type. The second type named Guardian Support Highlight Type. In the characteristic of type 2, they think that it is important to support the guardians of the disabled as the care or support of disabled is still mainly handled by their families in Korean society. Especially the partners of disabled are worried about the future of their disabled children after their death. And due to the continuous care, sometimes it is impossible to have daily life. Thus, they said that the sibling of disabled would always live their lives for the sake of disabled siblings, as their parents would also do so. However, the children without disability could also experience psychological wound or less loss because of this. So it would be also necessary to support them. Every family member, including a person with disability, has different burden or experience and difficulties in their own position. So there should be social consideration or program or them. Therefore, the Type 2 was named Guardian Support Highlight Type. This is discussion. In the result of this study, the type of subjectivity of the disabled perceived by nursing students were divided into Type 1 social policy level support highlighted type, Type 2 guardian support highlight type, and this study aimed to discuss the characteristics of each type. In this study, Type 1 was social policy level supported highlight type. If the disabled population is regarding to be continuously increasing, there should be various supports for them. They thought instead of regarding the care of the disabled just as their family's duty in the past, it would be necessary to seek for social and policy level alternatives so the disabled could become independent. Through the measure, the government and community should help the disabled to be able to fully work as a member of society based on the community spirit. The Type 2 was Guardian Support Highlight Type. Our society is still expecting that a lot of care and support of disabled are handled by their families from their birth to death. Thus, in case of this type, they think that not only the disabled but also their family should be socially protected and supported in the policy level. Their burden or sacrifice should not be regarded as natural. This study on the subjectivity would be helpful for changing the perception of the disabled in our society. Moreover, it could be utilized as the basic data for the development of differentiated education program by presenting the subjectivity, structure, and characteristics of each type of perception of disabled, targeting the nursing students as perceived medical personnel. However, this study only targeted in university and did not consider the factors have influences in the perception of the disabled when selected the subject. So the results of this study are limited to be generated. Thus, there should be additional verification by follow-up research on the type by composing in the Q sample with diverse background. This is conclusion. This study aimed to establish the basic data necessary for presenting the changing of perception of disabled and the approach of nursing through the nursing students to subjectivity perception of disabled by applying Q methodology. In the result of this study, it was divided two factors: the type of disabled perception by nursing students was social policy level support highlighted type and guardian support highlighted type. Thus, this study provides the basic data for establishing the measures for improving the attitude and perception of disabled in the future. By categorizing the nursing students' subjectivity of disabled. As this study analyzed the nursing students' perception of the disabled was also verifying the characteristic of each type, it should be lead to the development of educational program considering the characteristic of each type. This study also suggests that additional research on type analysis by extracting samples after considering various factors and qualitative research for verifying diverse factors have influence on the nursing of patients with disabled. This is reference. Thank you very much for your attention. Now I'd like to open it up for question. That's it. Thank you.